And welcome to Hannity, and this is a Fox News Alert, and we are broadcasting tonight from the 193rd Special Operations Wing at the Air National Guard Base in Middletown, Pennsylvania, where earlier today, President Trump, he took his message directly to you, the American people, by giving a major speech on his Reagan-esque tax cuts and his tax reform plan. Now, right before that speech, the president joined us for an exclusive interview. We discussed his tax proposal, the fake news media, the NFL's national anthem controversy, the Russia investigation, and so much more. Let's take a look. How are you, Mr. President?
I'm very good. Thank you, Sean.
My second interview since you've been president. You guys want to start with good news? Yeah. We do have some good news.
Go ahead.
Right? You don't get a lot of good news in the media.
Well, you don't get so much.
The market's up 25% since you won. You tweeted this out that nobody in the media brings it up, so I said, you know what, I'm going to bring it up tonight. $5.2 trillion in wealth created. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 16 years. We have the best labor participation rate in 7 years, and the lowest number of people on food stamps in 7 years.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. It's going really well. I'm loving it. I'm doing a job for the people, and people are seeing that. And I'm so proud of the $5.2 trillion of increase in the stock market. Now, if you look at the stock market, that's one element, but then we have many other elements. The country, we took it over, it owed $20 trillion. As you know, the last 8 years, they borrowed more than it did in the whole history of our country. So they borrowed more than $10 trillion, right? And yet we picked up $5.2 trillion just in the stock market, possibly picked up the whole thing in terms of the first 9 months, in terms of value. So you could say in one sense we're really increasing values, and maybe in a sense we're reducing debt. But we're very honored by it, and we're very, very happy with what's happening on Wall Street.
You came back to Pennsylvania. I know you've been in Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio and North Carolina, because a lot of people still need opportunity and jobs. Right. You're really here. You're going to be talking at length about your economic plan.
That's right.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's a massive tax cut. And, you know, it's a reform, but it's a massive tax cut. Somehow that's... And, you know, when we first introduced it, and for years they talk about tax reform, I said the problem with the word reform, nobody understands what it means. Because reform could mean you're going to raise taxes. This is the largest tax cut in the history of our country. It is incredible. It's going to put people to work. So right now, Sean, we are the highest taxed nation in the world, and we're going to be now down in the lower rung in terms of taxes. A family can get, and a business can get, especially a subchapter S. You know, you're doing different kinds of things with your businesses. Some people run it individually. But you can get as much as a 40% tax reduction. Again, it's the largest tax reduction in the history of our country.
Let's go through it. So, and this is important. I mean, there's no two accountants that can give you the same liability to the government if you give them the same information. That's how complicated the tax code is. You want to drop 7 brackets to 3.
We're going to drop, actually, if you look at it, because we have a 0 bracket, because a lot of people pay 0. So we really have 4, and they had 8. So it's really 8 down to 4. We're cutting it in half. And a lot are taxed below the $12,000 mark and $24,000 mark for a family. They're taxed at 0. After that, it goes to 12% from 15%. And, you know, the Democrats told a very terrible fib. They said that they read the brackets so that the brackets were inverted. And if you read it that way, but that's not the way it goes. And we've been praised for the amount of money. The middle class, this is really what I'm looking for. For the middle class, I call it the working people. And the working people are going to get a massive tax break. And corporations and companies and small companies are going to get large-scale tax relief. And they'll be able to compete with anybody in the world, which is what we need.
You said the corporate rate, which is so important, you said 20% is your max.
So right now we're at 35%, and many corporations are paying 40s and 42, and because they have state taxes and city taxes, and they have taxes so many different directions. You know what they do? They leave the country, and they fire everybody, and they're gone, and they never come back. Now we have companies moving back into the country. We have, you saw last week, auto companies are announcing that they're going to build plants back in the United States. That hasn't happened for years. And they're moving back, and not just because of the tax. This tax is so important, but they're seeing enthusiasm. We have the highest enthusiasm level in 28 years for manufacturing, for all of the different things that we talk about. But for business, basically, it's enthusiasm. Everybody's enthused about our country. So we're very honored by it, and I am really honored by the folks in this room. And by the way, the truckers, we love the truckers, I can tell you. Sure. Happens to be
true. The top 10% pay 70% of the tax bill. The bottom 50% pay 2% of the total income tax rate. Why is there are multinational corporations that have parked trillions of dollars in countries that offer them better tax relief? You're trying to incentivize those trillions to come back here with a low repatriation rate. How low will that be, and how much do you think you can bring back into the United States, and what does it mean?
Okay, so right now you have probably, and nobody knows the exact number because I actually think it's much higher than people understand, but it'll probably be over $3 trillion is outside of our country and our companies, and they just can't get it back. They're trying, but they can't get it back. Number one, it's a bureaucratic mess. Number two, the tax rate is so high it doesn't make sense. So what they do is they invest it in Europe and other places where the money is. And I'll tell you what they do also. They leave the country because the money becomes so much and so valuable to them that they leave the country, our country, to go and get their money. So they leave the country and they fire everybody. Now what we're doing is we're lowering the rate so they can bring it back in. We're giving them a shot to bring all that money. I think it's all going to come back in. It's going to come back in immediately. It's going to be more than $3 trillion. Probably we're looking at a 10% rate. It may be around that number, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but it's going to be right around that number, probably 10%. And right now what it is 35% plus. Now, who's going to bring money back when you have to pay, by the time you finish, almost half of your money in tax? So
you're never going to bring it back.
So we're going to have that money come back in. It's going to put people to work so fast, and the money itself is going to go to work very fast. And, you know, say what you want about Democrats and Republicans. For years, years and years, everybody's wanted to do that. You have trillions of dollars outside of our country, offshore, and the Democrats wanted it back. The Republicans wanted it back. Everybody wanted it back, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't get a deal. We're going to do a deal, and we're putting it down as part of our tax cuts.
One of the things some people have brought up, like that. Every time I tune into anybody else in the media except Fox, there are tax cuts for the wealthy. Yeah. Now, the rate for some people goes down, but if you live in a state like New York or Illinois or New Jersey or California, you won't be able to deduct your local or state income tax. In other words, if you elect politicians that want to raise taxes, you're going to pay the penalty. So that's not really true that this is a tax cut for the wealthy as they're portraying it. What is your answer to that?
Well, you know, you have some really well-run states that have very little borrowing. Some have no borrowing, but they have very little borrowing. And it's unfair that a state that is well-run is really subsidizing states that have been horribly mismanaged. I won't use names, but we understand the names. But there are some states that have hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in borrowing. And it's unfair that those states really are being subsidized by states like Indiana and Iowa. And I mean, I could name many states. I could probably name 3/4 of them. They're so well run and they're being penalized. They're being penalized, and it's not fair. And so what we're doing is we're showing that. Now, with all of that, the tax cuts are so steep that the people in every state benefit. But it's finally time to say, hey, make sure that your politicians do a good job of running your state. Otherwise, you're not going to benefit. You know, you look at a place like Florida, it's really well run by Rick Scott. And, you know, by Governor Scott, he's done a great job. And so many people have done a great job. And those are the people that, frankly, should, the people that had the intelligence to elect them should really benefit. And that's what we're doing. We're creating an incentive. And the bottom line, though, look, the tax cut is massive. We're bringing it down to 20%. We're bringing it down to 12% for individuals. We're bringing it down to 0 in some cases. If it's a family, it's below $24,000. Anything below $24,000 is 0. And look, it's as I just said, It's the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, and it's going to spur growth, and it's going to keep our companies here. Our companies are leaving because the taxes are so high.
But you also, a big part of it you've already done, and that is you've ended a lot of the Obama-era regulations, especially in industries like energy and coal.
Right.
There seems to be, you have a very strong commitment. You just recently went forward with ANWR. You've put in place opportunities for the coal mining industry, fracking. We do have an opportunity to be energy independent, and there seems to be millions of high-paying career jobs for people available if that decision is made. How big a part is that for the economic recovery?
Well, I have done so much, and Scott Pruitt, who is in EPA, has done incredibly. You saw yesterday at a news conference on coal, and his whole concept was coal is back. It's back. And the miners are working again.
They're fracking in Pennsylvania?
This isn't a bad area either. Well, as an example, mines are opening in the state of Pennsylvania. And I love this state because I happen to go to college in the state. I know it very well, and I love it.
You also won Pennsylvania, right? Is he going to win Pennsylvania in 2022? Oh, okay.
No, it's, by the way, incredible people, incredible state. And I did win Pennsylvania. I worked hard in Pennsylvania. And frankly, I understand what Pennsylvania is about work. These are people that want to work. But we're opening mines. We're opening mines in the state of Pennsylvania. We're opening mines in other places. You know, coal is and I call it clean coal. They have technology today that's so incredible. What they can do with a piece of coal is so incredible. I call it clean coal, but it's one of our great resources. One thing that I'm very proud of, the state of West Virginia, last month, it was one of the highest increases, percentage increases in GDP. The state of Texas beat it. And people are saying, wait a minute, West Virginia just came in second. You know what that's about? That's about cutting regulations and letting the people go and mine. And I was so proud of that because West Virginia's had very tough times. And, you know, they were overwhelmingly, for me, Hillary said she wants to close up industries, and she wants to close up the coal industry, and I'm the opposite. So I'm very proud of that, and Pennsylvania likewise. Very proud.
The biggest obstacle before you arrived here, I had an opportunity to interview a lot of people in this great crowd, and I asked them basically three different questions. What they thought of you. Overwhelmingly, there's a lot of support for you here. Congress. When I asked them about what was your answer on Congress? What was your answer on the media? We saw what happened with health care and John McCain. This economic plan sounds a lot to me like what Reagan did, and that created 20 million new jobs and revenues doubled. This is important for your agenda.
Yeah.
How do you get this through the Senate, which has not had a good record in the last 10 months?
Well, first of all, this will be an even bigger tax cut than the great Reagan cuts. This will be even more dramatic, and I think it will create even more incentive. But let's talk. Media is bad. They're really dishonest people. These are very, very dishonest people in many cases, and not all. Look, I know some reporters, I know some journalists that are phenomenal people and very straight, very honest, but there's such dishonesty. I mean, you know, it's interesting. If I was just watching television, you don't know whether or not, because, you know, you're just watching a report. But when you're the one being written about, you know if it's good or bad, and it's always, they try and make it negative. So the media has turned, I call it fake media. It's fake. It's so much fake news. And we have to understand. You agree with that, fake news? You know, and I only say it so when people read things, they can understand that so much of it is indeed fake. But with Congress, I've gotten to know a lot of them. There are a lot of good people. Don't forget, for health care, we had 48 votes, 49 votes. We had a lot of great Republicans. We need more Republican senators, to be honest with you. But we had a lot of great... And you have a good one. You have a good one running. Lou. By the way, Lou Barletta, as long as we're on the subject, Lou Barletta, great guy. He's running. He was an incredible congressman. And I think you're going to have a tremendous surge for Lou Barletta. I think he's going to do a fantastic job. So that's it. And we do need more Republican senators because we have a tiny, small, we have 52 to 48. And if a couple of people want to grandstand or whatever they want to do, all of a sudden, because when you have to get almost every single vote, you need 51. So you have to get at least 50 because the vice president, Mike Pence, great guy, right? Great. He comes out. Oh, he voted. So we need 50. So that means out of all of these people, 2 people decide they want to do something for whatever reason. And in some cases it's grandstanding. Now all of a sudden you don't have health care. But we're going to get it anyway. We have it. We have the numbers now. We're going to get that. And tomorrow, I'm signing something that's going to be incredible that I can do myself.
In 1974, there was...
This has to do with, we're going to have great health care, cross state lines. People can buy it. Will cost the government nothing. You'll go out. Private insurers are going to give you incredible health care. And I'll tell you what, this will take, and I can sign it myself. I don't need anybody. I would have done it earlier, except I was hoping that they were going to put this through and I'd have it in the bill. But we're signing tomorrow a health care package that will cover, I don't know, people say 30%, people say 25%, and some people say it could be 50%. It's going to cover a large percentage of the people that we're talking about.
Truckers would benefit if they unite.
Truckers are perfect for this.
Right.
They unite. They form a group, see?
Right.
No, truckers will benefit. They'll form a group. But this will be fantastic. Now, I would have done this immediately, but we were hoping for the health care. So I think health care is going to pass. I can't imagine the largest tax cut for people in our history not passing. But I have to say this. I've met some great, great people that are Republicans, and I've met some great people. Frankly, I've met some good people, not necessarily great people, that are Democrats. And I actually think we'll have Democratic support from a few people.
You do?
I do. I do believe that we'll have some Democrat support. We'll get a few votes, maybe. You know, it's interesting. The one thing with the Democrats, they stay together like glue. They're lousy politicians, and their policies are terrible, but they do stick together. We have great policies, but the Republicans tend not to be as unified.
So with some people, you saw and heard Bob Corker.
Yeah.
John McCain wasn't there, even though I can run 100 ads showing John McCain, I'm going to repeal and replace Obamacare. He wouldn't even vote to just repeal it.
Yeah, I know.
So that's got to be frustrating and disappointing.
Well, we thought we had it. The first time, we thought it was done. And we thought John was with us. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he voted again. So we end up losing by 1 vote. But here's the thing. We're going to get it. And, you know, I always say never give up, never ever quit. We don't quit. We're there. We're 1 vote short. We're there. I actually think right now we have the vote. But we have to wait. We have to wait for a little while. We're going to do the taxes first. Hopefully we get that. We need 51 votes.
You think you can get it done by the end of the year?
I hope so. I mean, who's going to vote against this? Our country is losing businesses, losing jobs. We have a 1% GDP. Now, I have to tell you, for the last quarter, you had 3%.
3-2.
And actually 3-2, they adjusted it upward. What a nice sound that is. Are they playing that for you or for me? They're playing that in honor of his ratings. Did you see how good his ratings are? He's beating everybody.
I think they'll be higher tonight. I'm just guessing.
So the fact is that we're really rocking. We have 3.2. Now, this next quarter coming up, I believe would have even been better. You know, we haven't hit threes in a long time. So I guess it was ultimately determined it was 3.2 because they adjust upward. But we got hit with a few hurricanes, as you probably heard. That'll have, I assume, an impact.
Barack Obama was the first president in history that never hit 3% GDP growth in a single year of his presidency, which I think speaks volumes.
Well, you know, when I took over, we were in the ones. And if we hit, think of this, if we hit just 1 point, if we go up from 2 to 3, we pick up $2.5 trillion. $2.5 trillion.
To the Treasury.
And we pick up millions of jobs.
Yeah.
So it pays for the whole thing. So it really pays for it. So I think it'll be good.